Hello, good morning.
Hello, Wojtek. Hello, Roman. How are you
Hello,
guys?
Victor. Hello, guys. All right, I think that we can start. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth edition of ESG Tech Talks, navigating the ESG systems landscape from big tech to smart startups. I am an ESG expert at Clouds on Mars, and today I will be hosting a conversation with Victor Dobrowolski. You could already met Victor during our previous webinar. Victor is our ESG data architect. And this time we will explore the ESG systems landscapes from two complementary perspectives, ESG strategy and regulatory requirements on my side as a business side, and ESG data architecture and system design on Victor's side. And together we will look at how organization can navigate the growing ecosystem of ESG technologies. So thank you for being with us. Thanks, Victor, to join me today. And I think that we can start. In the meantime, if any questions will appear, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat. Just to briefly show what ESG Tech Talks is and how does it look like. So the ESG Tech Talks format is designed as an open and informal conversation where we share reflections on ESG systems. So our goal is to actually explore together the different directions organizations can take when choosing such systems. And for today's sessions, Victor, I've divided our conversation into some segments. And I will share my perspective as an ESG expert, and I'm very curious to hear your view on these topics as well. So the first segment that I choose, it is actually an open question, and I'm really curious what is your opinion on that, is why actually ESG systems become SSA these days? What is your opinion on that?
So just to simplify, I'll try to be as simple as possible, not going to too big technical details. But if I were, and I will be trying to find one point, and the first point which comes to my mind is the data explosion, ESG data explosion. Why? So generally, first of all, to serve external disclosures, to serve internal managerial reporting among business units, operational units, to serve operational efficiency use cases, we really need to, let's say, expand our data scope horizontally, like more and more measures, metrics, sub-metrics, etc., more and more and more and more and more. And we also need to, let's say, deepen the scope, like going with the granularity to more and more and more detailed measurements and metrics. I will give you an example, and then I will tell you what it goes with in pair, but I will give you an example. So long story short, if you don't have a system, if you try to transform, process, manage the data manually, half automatically, using Excel's, more manual exchange, you will fail. Yeah, the very good example is, for example, with one of our clients, we are literally now migrating their scope 3, category 1, which is purchase goods and services, greenhouse gas emission, we migrate then from the top-down approach, which has been prepared by a single person in a single Excel sheet, like 100 rows, some proxies, averages on the material buckets. That's it. Single Excel, case closed. And nowadays, for better accuracy, we transit into bottom-up approach, like for each and every raw, pack material, intermediate, even finished product from contract manufacturing, which we purchase, they model the, let's say, emission factor, and then simply multiply by purchase goods volumes and aggregate bottom up. And it is, as you can imagine, they handle a few 100,000 of materials.
Yeah.
Every material has a few vendors. It's millions of rows every month. Actually, they go monthly. So you simply need a system which will be capable to make you able to manage that data and integrate, of course, with both upstream applications which do source, which, for example, ERP system, which gives you purchase goods, volume, and some downstream systems and applications like reporting layer, R&D systems, etc. So data explosion and really need for interoperability of the data for further integration, both upstream and downstream. That's the essence which makes ESG not handable in an Excel anymore, simply requiring a proper data management at scale. So that's my point of view, as short as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. So not only we have explosion of data, but also a need for automation. So it is also the point that I see right now. But for example, from my perspective as an ESG expert, I see that there is a lot of requirements. There is a lot of regulations that also needs to be handled, and the Excel is not sufficient when, for example, we have CSRD, we have LDR, we have a lot of abbreviations for companies to actually handled, with also audit pressure as some kind of main driver, as well as some stakeholders that are also have their own requirements. There is a different aspects when it comes to investors. They actually need something much more different than, for example, ESG indexes or some regulatory requirements. So to actually conclude this segment, I see that from the perspective of data, we have an explosion there. We have need for automation, but we have also many stakeholders that also have their own needs when it comes to preparing this data in the right format, and this is why ESG systems are actually nowadays becoming necessary. And now I would like to also move to the other segment, because I see that on the market we have many categories and many different ESG systems. And these landscapes are really actually large right now, but I see the main two categories. We have ESG systems that all are offered by big tech platforms, for example, SAP, Microsoft, IBM. And we have also an ESG systems, I call it native ESG systems, that comes from the roots of, for example, startups, that comes from the background related only to ESG expertise. And this is quite a different approaches on these systems. And my question to you is, how actually did big tech enter ESG, like Microsoft, like SAP? Uh, I know that you are quite experienced in it, and and you've seen this transition, for example, on Microsoft, that they actually somehow catch ESG as a new topic.
Hmm. Who knows? I've never worked for any of the big tech companies, but let's try. By the way, because generally, what is nice that for the last few months, actually, we're running together with Wojtek, by the way, a few requests for information, requests for proposal, let's say procedures regarding various ESG data platforms for various use cases. And we're indeed meeting with both big tech, smaller companies, and reviewing all kinds of platforms. So yeah, we have pretty real life experience on how it works, but why do they enter? Well, I'm used to say that simply there's nothing special about ESG data, except for, let's say, interdisciplinary of ESG, novelty of ESG itself. So first of all, I'm a big tech. First of all, there's a new data domain like ESG. They really need more and more and more and more and more granular data. That's nice. And the second point is simply there's the regulatory pressure, there's the incorporation of sustainable development into business strategy. So there's stakeholder pressure onto enterprises, so it becomes strategically important. It's not yet another data domain, which sometimes is even not visible outside. It's the domain. It's very strategically important domain. So I'm a big tech, and I'm actually serving the enterprises already some data platforms, some systems like enterprise resource planning, ERP systems, CRM systems, all that kind of stuff. And I know that the ESG data is important. We will need to handle that. So I'm coming in simply to take my place. And what I can bring is, if I serve an enterprise and ERP system, I can serve them also an ESG system and ensure interoperability, smooth integration between the systems. That's what I do, and that's why I come in simply. That's yet another business opportunity for me, which is strategically important for enterprises, regardless of whether they believe into their sustainability goals and targets or not. Let's say we believe, they do believe in that, and they are really all in ESG. So that's my point of view very quickly.
Yeah, actually, I see it the same way, that they realized that they are already in organization. They are already have in this organization, that they have already data that can be used also in, for example, sustainability platforms. So they decided also to build up sustainability platform for that company. And I can also reflect some of these platforms. So, for example, we have Microsoft Sustainability Manager, we have SAP Sustainability Control Tower, we have IBM and VC, we have Sphera. So actually, every company, big tech company, is now involving in ESG platform. Also ServiceNow, and many others. On the other hand, I would like to also reflect on that, that we have a rapid evolution of these native ESG platforms that actually came out very often from the startups, like Sweep, like Watersheet, like Workiva. I think that they also actually came from startups, and they are focusing only on ESG. Maybe Workiva have also some accountings, but the main core is ESG. They are ESG expertise, and they expand their tools built actually for specific needs. So for carbon, for HES, for supply chain, for product footprint. And now I would like to go to another topic, and I am curious, what is your opinion, Victor, about it? Because I see these ESG big tech platforms as some kind of blank canvas. And do you agree with that? What is your perspective? And as a blank canvas, I mean that actually everything, when it comes to processes, has to be built from scratch in that tools.
Yeah, so that might be the question of a day, actually, because indeed the biggest difference between big tech platforms like SAP, IBM's, Microsoft's versus some smaller companies, platforms very specific, sometimes into particular pieces of environmental impact, is really in the difference between, strategical difference or high level difference between simplicity and flexibility. So big tech platforms, ESG platforms, their, let's say, biggest strength is flexibility. So they are oriented into enterprises, large scale corporations with all kinds of complexities in their data, business processes, etc. So they provide you a platform which you could really call it somehow blank canvas, at least from a smaller organization point of view. Like, I'm running my small business, I want a platform, I'll go to IBM and I discuss their platform, and what I notice is that actually don't provide me anything. They give me something where I need to come in with a group of developers and actually configure everything, spending a few months. So they don't bring me value added, actually. So it's all about flexibility. Indeed, big platforms, big tech is focused on flexibility and integration with all other pieces of the ecosystem, especially their own systems like ERP, etc. So flexibility here, and it's good for bigger companies which have their own complexities, like very complex. An example from our, let's say, landscape is a client which is CPG, FMCG, which has pretty complex supply chain. So they purchase something, sell it, and it comes many times into the boundaries of an organization. So for them, a typical platform calculating scope 3, category 1 would not work, because it usually takes either goods receipt or the shipment of finished products and then decomposes, calculates, and it does not work for them because it would provide double counting from their point of view, because some materials come into the boundaries and come outside the boundaries many times. So flexibility is the feature here, because you can really configure everything according to your reality. But of course, you need to put some effort into that. Yeah. So it will pay back long term, but you will need to have much more bigger one-off effort at the very beginning. Whereas the smaller ESG-native, as you are saying, platforms very often dedicated to particular pieces of environmental impact, as I said, they really enforce simplicity, user experience. And their main goal is simply serve very typical organization reality, very typical business processes, very typical data landscape, and make a customer of such a platform having to do as little as possible, just bringing the data and it works by off the shelf. Yeah. So that's their core strength. But for a big enterprise with the complexities, it will probably not serve the purpose. They will not be able to leverage the platform properly, because when you start adjusting your business processes, your reality into a solution, there's something wrong. Yeah. So solution must be adjustable to your reality. If you do the opposite, that's a red flag. Something's wrong. And that's the biggest difference, probably. But indeed, there's something like a black canvas. I like the wording here. It really makes sense. So simplicity, smaller, more specific platforms, you will spend more time to launch, or flexibility. You're a big enterprise, when you big platform, you need to put much effort to configure it, but it will really adjust to your reality. That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree that with flexibility is also connected with scalability. So you also are able to scale these solutions. But when it comes to this native solutions, I see that there are some kind of limitations. And I would like to also talk about this pros and cons. So maybe we now know what are pros and cons when it comes to big tech solutions. But I was wondering what are pros and cons when it comes to these ESG native platforms.
That
What do you think?
that's easy, Wojtek, because that will be the opposite. So simply a more
Exactly.
specific platform like the ones which we're looking for. Product carbon footprint, recording and calculating some greenhouse gas emissions. They are simply much more or less customizable. So simply they are pre-built to serve typical processes, and that's it. You cannot customize it too much because that's a platform, that's how it works, and that's it. And simply it might have a weaker integration with some upstream systems from which you take data and downstream systems where you want to serve the data. Of course, it has always some integration capabilities, but not so rarely. It's, for example, Excel import or export. It's not very efficient nor effective. So with customization, you will lack customization for sure, and integration challenges, especially with more complex ecosystem, could be also a challenge. Simply they have a different target group. Either you're a smaller organization, more standard one, more typical one, then you go to them, or you are really a large enterprise, you go into more flexible, larger platforms, especially if you want to limit the number of systems which you're having. Because theoretically, you could try to have a platform per, let's say, environmental impact or scope part category, a separate platform per each, but then your landscape would be terrible. So you'll be really having tens of platforms. It's not the goal. If you really want to integrate as much as possible within as little as possible platforms, then you will be probably going into the large scale platforms from the big tech, as you are saying. That's it. But the opposite, simply, it's always the opposite.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I will maybe reflect on some pros on these native platforms, because actually, where you can have a rapid compliance readiness, because you already have pre-built some of ESRS standards, for example. You have built-in GHG standards with also emission factors already, and it doesn't require you to setting it up everything from the scratch. But actually, you can also rely on the processes that are already in these apps, in these tools. But this is one trick point on that. So it is good whenever to be inspired by the processes that are inside of the solutions, whenever your processes are not already established in your company. The also one advantage and that I see when it comes to this solution is minimal IT effort. You often get software as a service, and that's all. And actually, you are ready, to drag and drop some of the files, some of the templates that you filled in, and you automatically filled in the tool. But of course, there could be some, potential problems when you, as a company, has a different process. So then you really have a struggle with customize it. Victor, yeah.
One more point, actually, from our experiences, but also, especially according to smaller platforms, much of value added comes also from the level of support which they are to provide you. Like two examples, which were actually one of the platform vendors was, for example, collecting invoices for scope 1 and scope 2 calculations for a customer. So it's very nice piece of a service. Or another one was, for example, collecting product carbon footprint factors from your suppliers. So you are outsourcing actually part of business activity into such a platform provider. It is much more typical for smaller players rather than big tech. Big tech says, of course, we don't touch, we give platform, do whatever you need with whoever you need. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I think that naturally we can go to the next segment. So I see quite important role of implementation partners. when it comes to, for example, an enterprise solutions like from the big tech. And what do you think from the data architect perspective? Why partners are critical there?
Yeah, especially for big tech and bigger enterprise grade platform. Indeed, well, a platform provider like IBM, they provide you the platform and that's it. And some IT support mainly. If something does not work in the platform, you raise a ticket and they solve the
Yeah.
issue. That's it. But not too much more. Whereas indeed, you really need an implementation platform, a company like Cloud Marsh, of course, but also other companies, which actually make the platform a solution working for you, meeting your requirements, needs. Yeah, because an implementation platform is kind of a bridge between the platform provider and the business reality, business needs, requirements, business processes, data architecture, etc. Yeah, so they act as a bridge to simply make an implementation successful. Without an implementation partner, you really need to have simply very strong internal resources and their capacity to make it happen. So indeed, yes, that's an implementation platform actually transforms just a platform, yet another platform into the solution. Long story short.
Yeah, yeah, and I see also your role quite critical, to set up a good connections and good architecture, a good, data flows, to have it out in the most automatic way as it possible in the company. And from the perspective of mine, like ESG expert, it is quite important that partners should actually uh, understand, the business problems and the ESG regulations and also the requirements that client faces. So it is quite important, to within this partner to design the right KPIs and to ingest to the tool the good methodologies. Uh, all right. Uh, I think that we are closing to the end, but I have another segment in the closing, and just to briefly, going to this segment. So what I would like to highlight is that it is very important to match the ESG technology to organizational maturity. So as you, Victor, already said, and you can confirm that early phases require simplicity, but later on, it is quite important to scale the architecture and scale the solution. Yeah, and what do you think about it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so that's absolutely, so generally, long story very short, it's about really finding the golden mean between simplicity and flexibility, depending on your maturity level. I'll try to express maturity level from data perspective in a sec, but it's really about finding, not going too simple or too flexible at a particular stage versus the maturity level. From data architecture point of view, at least three, I could say, according to real life experiences. The very first level, let's say crawl, is okay. We are enforced to report something, to operationalize something. So we simply try to do as much as possible with at least effort as possible. We calculate some very basic measures, metrics in Excel just to really meet the very, very must-have requirement. That's it. So a starting point. Later, we are actually widening, as at the beginning I said, horizontally, more and more measures and metrics used by more and more stakeholders, and deepening the scope, so more detailed data. Like I can see, actually, I can assign my scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emission to particular finished products which are manufactured, for example, or services which I've provided. That's the second stage. And the third stage, I would say, Wow, that's a really fascinating stage where you really operationalize your data. So your reporting goes smoothly, case closed, but you really try to make use of the ESG data in R&D use cases. Eco design, you really integrate ESG data, you bring ESG data into their system, like into R&D composer system where they simply play with parts to establish a finished product. That's the third stage actually. And you really, what I would say, one point would be, don't be afraid. No, not like this maybe, but generally there's nothing bad in going with simple systems first, and later, once you really progress among maturity, switch the system to a more advanced, more flexible platform. Yeah, because starting too flexible will be bad, starting too simple will be bad. So you really need to find, you should not be afraid of starting rather simple than too flexible. If I really was to choose, I choose shorter term reality, not the 10 years ahead requirements which could come. No, my short-term reality is as follows. So I'm trying to find a solution which really meets the requirements. And later, within 5 years, I will think about switching a platform to a more advanced one, more flexible. So that would be it.
Yeah. That's a good point. And actually, also you mentioned this when a company reaches, this maturity stage, they actually also can make the ESG systems not only, the reporting platform, but also the decision-making platform, for example, for R&D. So that's a really good point. All right. At the end, I think that we can think about the most common ESG system mistakes. What you have firstly in your mind when you think about, the common ESG systems
First fault, it's not only ESG actually. The very first fault, and it's so often met in practice, please trust me, is okay, I'm seeing a great platform, very nice demo. The user experience is just blowing your head, so nice. I'll be clicking everything so smoothly, beautiful ESG platform, but unfortunately they do not handle this and that process. So I will need to take the data from the platform and create yet another sub platform to simply, to compensate the lack of some capability. So really, you should always think, if you need to really adjust your business reality to a platform, that's not a platform for you. I mean, the core scope, of course, because some pieces always you will have to do on top, probably. But if it really does not serve the key requirements, that's not the platform, even if it looks beautiful, and they really look beautiful, by the way, so it could be very tempting. Be careful, but simply not try to adjust your reality into a platform. If a platform is not able to meet your requirements, pick another platform. That's it. And very often, user experience wow effect during the demos wins. We purchase a platform and later, whoa, wow, but our complex supply chain does require yet another platform, or we'll be deduplicating what the primary platform has calculated for us. So then it's simply a failure. And that's it, only 1 point.
Yeah, and there's, for example, a problem with data integration and data connections, and actually, you are struggle with, some manual templates, and yeah. So yeah, I agree. From my perspective, I think that no ESG maturity of the organization on the roadmap is quite important. I have also a case on that example that we have a client that he lost actually a system owner for one of the solution, and actually there was no usage of very complex platform for more than 6 months, and actually the dashboards were not refreshed, and the business value actually disappears, and it was that they were not prepared for so advanced solution at this stage. Now they want to fix it. Now they are building the ESG team for it, and now there is a system owner, but actually they have to go back and set up everything from, maybe not from the scratch, but mostly from scratch. All right. I think that we reach the end, and now there is a time for Q&A session. And do you have some questions? I will check out. I don't see any question, or maybe here. All right, I have one. All right, let's focus on it. So, do big tech providers like Microsoft or SAP offer sustainability solutions that already could build in processes or templates that companies can simply adopt? All right, that's really good question. So, yes, they do. So, for example, Microsoft has already pre-built and predefined structures. Some also examples of processes and some sample indicators like emission factors. But actually, and it is important to understand that these templates are usually designed more as some kind of starting point. Also for our demos, when I show to some other clients, I also ingest some sample data, some dummy data, and I have also a process already established, and it is rather a direction how to set up some things, and not a ready-made made process. So, for example, MSM help users understand the logic of the system and what an ESG data model might look like. Yeah, so we shouldn't treat it as some kind of a ready-made module. We should treat it as some kind of direction on how to build that logic. All right. Do you have some other questions? All right. I don't see any other questions. So I'm very happy that you've joined us today. If you would like to go back to the recordings or to the recordings of previous our series, we have a YouTube channel where we put our webcast. And of course, I invite you to contact us whenever you have some problems or some challenges related to ESG systems. We can really help you on decided on which systems you should use, or how to implement the systems like that. So you can reach out on LinkedIn, via website Clouds on Mars. And I also want to invite you to follow us on LinkedIn, because for sure there will be some new webinars and webcasts on ESG Tech Talk series. So I really encourage you to follow it. And thanks very much for today. Thanks, Victor, for joining me, and see you next time.
Thank you very much, Wojtek. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Roland, and see you next time. Then, bye bye.
Bye bye. See you.